These are open to the public. We're on page 128. You can open your prayer books in the lower right-hand corner. If you have two numbers, look at the ones in brackets. The middle of page 128, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. Meshoch Avdecha Eretz Onecha Meshoch Avdecha Yadadadayay Eretz Onecha Yarutz Avdecha Yarutz Avdecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayar, Yishtachave Yadayday, Aladadayay, El Mul Hadarecha, El Mul Hadarecha.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's good to be together as we know that the sun is getting lower in the sky and soon it will set, and we're entering into this 25-hour period that is set aside for us to be able to remember that we're alive, and there are wondrous things about being alive. We are in the 3 weeks. You might know, you might not know, or you might know what the 3 weeks are. The 3 weeks are the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is the lowest point on the Jewish calendar. It's a time of mourning. It's a fast day. And it's a day in which we remember all of the destructions that have come to our people, all of the catastrophes of our past, most notably the destruction of the temple 2 times. And it's that, and it's also a metaphor for being in a world that's broken, being in a world where things are falling apart. And even if it wasn't the 3 weeks, I think we might be coming here heavy with a feeling that our world is not as we'd like it to be, not whole in the way we'd like it to be. Feels like it is falling apart in lots of ways. And yet, no matter what is going on in our world, we take every 7th day to rest from that reality. We're in touch with it. Well, I'll speak a little bit about it, but we don't pretend it's not real. But we also remember that there's more than one kind of thing that you can look at, no matter what's going on. You can still look at the beautiful sky. You can still remember the miracles that are around us every day, no matter what is going on. You can still get in touch with the simple things that are blessings. Just breath. Just a heart that can feel. eyes that can see love that's present in the world. And so that is what we're doing as the sun prepares to set on this Friday. We are aware of the heaviness of the brokenness of the world. And we are also taking a day to focus elsewhere, to focus on what is good and whole and beautiful and blessing, worthy of gratitude. So we're going to sing together on page
130.
130. Thank you, Cantor Breitzer. And I'll get it. And we are in Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the part of our service which is about helping us transition from the 6 days in which we were in touch with all that brokenness into the 7th day in which we're in touch with what is also whole, what is also good just as it is. And so the way we make that transition is we sing with our whole selves, our whole hearts and our whole voices. We sing because that opens us up and it touches our hearts and it reminds us, oh yes, there is good in the world. Thank you. Thank you.
לכו נרננה לאדוני נריע את צוישנו לקדמה פניו Page 131. Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru miyom leyom Yeshuato, Sapru v'goyim kevodo, Bechol ha'amim nifleotav, Gadol Adonai u'me'olal me'od norahu al kol Elohim ki kol Elohei ha'ad elilim ba'aronai shamayim asa od behadar ותיברת במקדשו, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלוא ינוס שרי, וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל הציה. ישפוט תבל וצדק ועמים באמונתו. לי עלי 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 ay ay ay. Let's hear you. Ay ay. Through your mask in spite of everything. Ay ay. We need to sing. We need to sing louder. Ay 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 ay. Ay ay ay. Nice. 132. Adonai malach tagel haaretz, yismechu im rabim. Hanan barapel tzedivav, tzedek u'mishpat mechon kiso. Ohavei Adonai, sineu ra. Shomer nafshot hasidav, miyad reshaim yatzilemo. Zaru al tzadik, kol yishle lesimcha. Simchu tzadikim Adonai, ve'odu lezecher kodsho. 133. Mizmor shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, ki niflaot asa, hoshia lo yamino uzroa kodsho. Dia Adonai yeshuato, ve'enei hagoyim gilad tzidkato, zachar chasto ve'emunato. Yeshua Eloheinu, Hariul Adonai kol haaretz, itztu verandenu vezamenu, zamru l'Adonai vechinor, vechinor vekol zimera, v'chatzot zerot vekol shofar, hariu lifnei hamelech, Adonai rav hayam u'mpero. Tevel leyoshveiva, neharon yimchaucha, yachad harim yeranenu lifnei Adonai kiva, yishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel tzedek, ve'amim ve'meisharim yanai, ananai. The middle of 137. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo. Ay, 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 v'shalom. Ay, 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 v'shalom. Once again. Ay, 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 v'shalom. Ay, 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 v'shalom. There are certain places in a Torah scroll where the text jumps out at you, maybe because of the way it looks, but sometimes it's because of what's not there. In this week's Torah portion, we encounter the word shalom, which happens many times throughout the Torah, but in this particular Torah portion, the word shalom is broken. If you look carefully, the vav in the Hebrew word for shalom is broken. There's a space in it, and there's a lot of reasons as to why, but perhaps at this moment as we welcome Shabbat, and asking God for greater sense of shalom, of peace and wholeness, we can find within ourselves a sense of a complete shalom. And when the other 6 days of the week seem like shalom is broken, maybe today we can find a sense of wholeness. And so let's sit with that here in this air-conditioned space for just a few moments. A complete shalom, if only for a few moments. Ay, 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 la, la, la. 138. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו תפארת ונתינה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקרב נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך ההפכה. רב לך שבת בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, אורי. שיר לברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך בגלל. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Verse 9. שלום עטרת עליי, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. Stay standing. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת. מחיית כפיים. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Please be seated, page 140. Uh-oh. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, ליום מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר שמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור מזמור שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
After a bleak several months, finally, this was the week that women have been waiting for. Yes, the guarantee of LGBT marriage rights was passed by the House of Representatives. Yes, the right to contraception was passed by the House of Representatives. Yes, women members of Congress were arrested in front of the Supreme Court in defense of abortion rights. But I'm talking about the brave stand of the daughters of Zelophehad in front of Moses and Eleazar the priest and 70 male elders, declaring, demanding women's right to inherit land. They came forward to make their appeal, and it turned out that God was on their side. Now, these are some of the only named women in the wilderness, and the only women besides Miriam whose voices we hear. It's a modest win, granted. If a woman has no brother or uncle or other male relative and her father dies and therefore his landholding would be lost to the family, then his daughters can inherit land. Now, at the time, this was revolutionary. It made a path for women to be economically self-sufficient. This is the first time we have a glimpse into a way for a woman to survive and even thrive, regardless of marital status or her ability to bear children. In other words, an unmarried, childless woman could have a life. It's quite the relevant image in a year when we're back to questioning whether women are more than reproductive vessels. So Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcha, and Tirzah changed history with their assertiveness and their advocacy. What I never realized in all my years of reading this parsha and this story, and this is one of my favorite stories, as you might imagine, until this year, what do people say? Until I was this many years old, or what is it? Until I was, I don't know. Today years old, right? Until I was today years old, yesterday years old, was that they were not the only 5 women to immediately benefit from women's right to inherit property. There was another woman who inherited land along with them, and her name was Serach. So let's back up. Immediately before Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcha, and Tirzah, turn off the phone, please, took their daring stand, God called Moses, no, not really, God told Moses to take a census with the twin goals of identifying Israel's fighting force and distributing the land that they're about to enter equitably among the tribes. All of the men 20 years of age and older of each tribe are counted. And in addition to all of the male heads of clans, 6 women are named. In the tribe of Menashe, the 5 daughters of Zelophehad, and in the tribe of Asher, Serach. Now, unlike any other person in the Parsha, Serach is introduced with the words Vishem bat Asher Serach. And the name of Asher's daughter was Serach. The commentators wonder, well, what is this doing? What is she doing here? And what is this introduction doing in the midst of a count of men of fighting age? Why this special introduction? Ramban says it means that she is inheriting her own land, and they're naming her in this way to point that out. Chizkuni agrees with that and adds that her name precedes the idea that she has a name precedes her name because her life was so full of good deeds. And Dat Tzrenim agrees. And Rashi says what the rest of them all take for granted, that her mention here specific mention here must be because of the extraordinary fact that she is still alive. Now, hold on, you might say. Wasn't Asher a son of Jacob, along with Reuben and Judah and Gad and Issachar? Yes, Asher was a son of Jacob. And doesn't that mean that Asher was alive back in the book of Genesis, 3 Torah books ago? It does mean that. And didn't Asher come down to Egypt with Jacob back during the time when his brother Joseph, when Asher's brother Joseph was vizier of Egypt and Pharaoh's right-hand man? Yes, all of this is so. Serach is in fact listed as one of the 70 family members of Jacob who came down to Egypt long before the Israelites were enslaved. Now wait, weren't the Israelites enslaved for more than 400 years? Indeed. And the Torah tells us that Serach was still around when the Israelites crossed the sea to freedom. Even so, you might object. Didn't the generation who went free from Egypt wander for 40 years and then all die in the wilderness? Yes. To wit, in this very parsha, Moses is instructed to appoint Joshua as the new leader because he is about to die, because no one from the slave generation will still be alive to enter the promised land, except for 2 people, Joshua and Caleb. 2 people, except though the Torah doesn't say so in the same breath, also Serach. She is the only one of the wilderness generation still standing. And she was already many centuries old when these other people were born. Of all the children of Israel, Serach is the only one who, upon entering the land of Israel, is going home. Somehow she has survived for something like 470 years. And because of the activism of Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcha, and Tirzah, she will be inheriting her own plot of land in Israel, the place of her birth. Now, if you're still with me, it's hard to imagine that Serach and the daughters of Zelophehad didn't know each other. Because it has to be that at very least, after they did their daring advocacy, that Serach found her way to the sisters to say thank you. But it seems more likely that she knew them all along. In fact, I'd like to imagine that she was their mentor who helped them to prepare. Now think about it. They were the ideal test case, 5 of them. Father died, no male relatives. They were articulate and bold and capable of taking on the fearsome task of telling Moses that he was wrong. Just like Rosa Parks was chosen among many potential test cases who actually preceded her in refusing to get up from their seats, she was chosen to be the one to challenge the law of segregation. And just as she trained for years before refusing to give up that seat, I'm thinking that the daughter's speech was no spontaneous act, but instead that Serach was behind the scenes all along, lifting up the next generation of women leaders. And this comports with a larger theory that I have been brewing, that there was an underground network of women's resistance and mutual aid throughout the wilderness experience. This theory first came to me. I know some of you are not believing me, but listen. This theory first came to me with Parshat Naso, in one of the most sexist episodes of the Torah. When we encounter the Sota ritual, Cantor Breitzer's heard me talk about this when we were there just recently.
Yeah, but not in these words.
Not in these ways. I know, because I'm making this connection now I've never thought of, which is Serach being part of this whole network. Okay, I'm getting excited about this. So in the Sota ritual, do people know what that is? It's not a happy thing. Okay, I'm going to tell you about it. So in a Sota ritual, if a woman has been accused of adultery by her husband, but he has 0 evidence that she's done that, that woman has to endure a public ritual intended to humiliate her, and in so doing, vent off or satiate the jealousy of her husband. Some commentators surmise that this ritual, which centers on a supposedly magical potion of bitter waters, was meant as a means of preventing violence against women. The idea being that it would address and perhaps, relieve the husband's rage. What occurred to me for the first time this year is that the words bitter waters, me marim, have the exact same spelling as the words Miriam's waters, me Miriam. Biblical Hebrew has no vowels. These 2 phrases are identical. We know that Miriam sustained the Israelites with her water from her magical well, so it seems likely to me that in the Sota ritual, we have evidence of an underground network of resistance and mutual aid by and for women. A woman accused of adultery would seem to undergo a dangerous and humiliating ritual of bitter waters, while all the time the water she was drinking was the sweet waters of Miriam's well. The men stood around exacting vengeance on their conspiracy theory, while the women exchanged knowing glances as they engaged in the pantomime. What else did this underground network provide? I'm now, with the presence of Serach and the daughters of Zelophehad in this episode, seeing further and extended evidence of all the things it might have done. And perhaps Serach was the wise woman elder figure behind it all. Now, one more important piece of the puzzle, and then we'll bring it all together, hopefully. Our Parsha this week is not named for a woman, though I do believe that more women are named in this Parsha than any other, because Moses' mother Yocheved and sister Miriam are also named, besides the 6 that I've been focusing on. But the Parsha is named for a man named Pinchas. Now, Pinchas is a complicated figure who's celebrated by God for stopping a mass orgiastic frenzy that was leading to a deadly plague. And he did so by impaling a couple with a spear while they were mid-coupling. He did so while Moses and Eleazar, his father, the high priest, stood by and did nothing. Aside from Pinchas's act, which I recognize is a significant thing to put aside, the start of this portion is a celebration of decisive action when the whole world has gone mad. When the whole world has gone mad and the people in charge aren't doing anything to stop it, and it's leading the whole society toward death, that is not the time to wait. That's what Torah is saying. That is not the time to look around and hope someone else will take care of it. That is not the time to doubt your own power or your role or whether you're the right person to act. That is the time to act. That is the time to see what you can do to make it better, to make it stop, to take the healing of your society into your own hands. Now, I hope you know me well enough to know that I'm not advocating violence or vigilantism. I am not. But I am suggesting that there are times that call upon us, no matter who we are, no matter where we stand, to stop business as usual, to stop blindly doing the work of the past, to stop being limited by the roles expected of us, and instead to risk everything and to take decisive action to change the course of history. That's what I think the Pinchas episode is getting at. So here we are in a burning world, in a society slouching toward autocracy, patriarchy, and decay. And the people in charge are not demonstrating an ability to meet this moment. In this parasha, we have 4 models for this time. If you buy my story about Serach, we have an underground network of mutual aid, mentorship, and resistance. We have advocates confronting power and changing laws. We have decisive action by ordinary citizens to change direction. And finally, we have in Serach also long-term survival, quietly, steadily, persistently making it through all the ups and downs, endings and beginnings, crises and resolutions to be part of making a future with the next generation. May we, in our time, advocate for new laws now. May we take decisive action from wherever we stand to change our direction now. May we support one another in mutual aid and mentorship and resistance now. And may we invest in the 500-year horizon, imagining, like Serach, building a future with the next generation. Can you hear that song?
Page 144, we rise. 146, 148. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam asher b'nei ba'alavim anamim, ורבותיך שבי ותואם השני, תמחליף את הזמן ושדה בכוכבים משמעותיהם ברקיע כצאנו, אור יום ולילה ולילות מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. 150. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגד יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. 154. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבנייך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן. Page 158 is that newer call and response melody, so I call, you respond. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילו עושה מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע היה לפני משה ומרים. זהלי ענו ואמרו חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We come now to the part of the service in which we intentionally call to mind all those who need shelter, whether it's physical shelter because they lack it, or whether it's a kind of shelter of peace, a sense of safety, of protection, of having what they need and being out of danger. So I invite you to think now about who in the world needs this blessing tonight. Who should we be praying for collectively with Hashkivenu? And then from there, we'll go into all of the individual people we know and love who need healing. They're related. But first, we're with the collective, and then we're with the individual. All those who need an extra measure of safety, of shelter, of peace.
160. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, L'shalom, Ve'hamidenu shomrenu lefayim, Uvros aleinu, Sukat shelomecha, V'takeneinu, Ve'etza tova milfanecha, Ve'hoshienu למען שמך והגן בדנו והסר מעלינו אויב טרף וחרב ורעב ויגון הרחק ממנו עוון והפשע ובצל כנפיך כי אל שומרנו מצילנו אתה כי אל חנון ורחום אתה ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל
We pray for healing for those we name now. pray together.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn back in our prayer books to page 162 for the singing of the Shamru, to be followed by silent prayer from 164 through 181. Rise, page 162.
Cantor Bracer just reminded me in this spot where we often have announcements that we have one announcement, even though it's the middle of summer, which is that this Tuesday, we are hosting a candidate forum for all of the candidates who are running to represent this district in Congress. It'll be in our sanctuary at 7 p.m. I'm co-moderating with Jacob Kornblue from the Forward, and it's co-sponsored with New York Jewish Agenda and JCRC. And you should come. You should tell people about it. It's an opportunity for us to get to know whoever it's going to be, who's going to represent us in Congress, District 10. Okay. So we always end, we Jewish people, when we come together for prayer, we end by entering the realm of memory and pulling close people we love whom we've lost. And I want to invite you, if you are in a recent period of mourning, if you're in the first week of mourning, if you're in Shiva, I want to invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. And if this is Shloshim for you, if you're in the first 30 days since the death of a loved one, please rise and tell us who you're remembering. Thank you. And if this is the first year, if you're in the first year since the death of a loved one, if you're in Shana, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. Thank you. And if this is a yard site for you, the anniversary of the death, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. And we all rise in company with the mourners in our midst. We remember these recent losses in our congregational community. Judy Rabinowitz, mother of Josh Rabinowitz, mother-in-law of Janet Gotchman, and grandmother of Jake and Zoe. Marcia Israelite Lieberman, mother of Lisa Lieberman, and grandmother of Allie and Maddie. Herbert Fleischer, father of Matt Fleischer Black, father-in-law of Jessica Fleischer Black, and grandfather of Rose and Kate. And these yard sites: Isabel Hyams Abraham, Julian Alcon, Ruth Tepper Amols, Rebecca Belowski, Gail Bernstein Gold, Allison Brunel, Daniel Camp, Olive Cohen, Marianne Dreyfus, Matthew Eisman, Eileen Feiertag, Ruth Flax, Paul Garrett, Anne Greenberg, Benjamin Hershkovitz, Annette Hoffman, Ida Eisen, Herman Kahn, Carol Kaplan, Lester Klein, Molly Knitzer, Samuel Konevsky, Judith Lesh, Lily Meyer, Barbara Millman, Pincus Perlmutter, Leonard Polonsky, Beatrice Rockmore, Hermine Rosner, Gary Rosenfeld, Nelson Rosenthal, Herbert Saltman, Arthur Sanders, Abraham Sands, Jacques Zephyr, Yael Schneider, Irene Schwartz, Norma Siegel, Jonathan Serksner, Sidney Shane, Jeffrey Sherman, Milton Silverstein, Solomon Singer, Elisa Solomon, Pauline Sturzer, Joseph Weiner, Ruth Wolfert, Ruth Wolk, Anne Zink Frank, Benjamin Zwerling. Putting them all together, we say Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be an everlasting blessing. As we turn to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute, B'chayechon of Yomechon of Chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shmei D'Kudisha brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. May the maker of peace make peace for all who mourn. And we say together,
Amen. The bottom of 657. A prayer for a complete peace, not just for us now, but for all our generations to come. Hey-ho, 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 hey-ho. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please join us for Kiddush.